Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Pampered fat cats with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended
Cool.
clip.
Rolling
Rolling like Durst.
like Stiller, dude.
True. And Dorf.
And Dorf.
That is the coolest move. If like a guy ever hands you his keys to park his car and is a jerk, you just go, you look into the camera that's somehow there and you go, keep on rolling, baby.
Did you see Stiller pulled a Lou Reed move? A street hassle move?
Did he do an I Want to Be Black? Is that what you're saying?
He,
Oh my
on
God.
on the white dudes for Kamala Harris Zoom meeting, he said like every white Jewish boy, he wants to be black, and I want to be black or something. You know, obviously in context it probably was more complimentary, but it is
Good for him.
I do think of Lou Reed, and anytime someone says that now, I think of that song.
He's the only one brave enough to say it, you know.
Exactly.
We all think it. That song is so insane, dude. Like the characteristics that he ascribes to black people in that song, like shooting 20 feet of jism and having a foxy whore named Samantha. It's like, come on, dude.
Is that what Stiller's talking about on the Zoom call? Was that why he said that?
Historic candidate. You know, it's going to be the first woman president, and that's incredibly exciting. And you know, she's Indian, she's black, she's everything. You can be more than one thing. It's incredible. You know, I'm Jewish and Irish. I wish I was black. Every white Jewish guy wishes he was black. You know, it's just get out there and vote and donate and like take advantage. This is such an important time right now.
I wanna be black. Yeah, I wanna be black.
Oh, I love Lou so much. Rest in peace to the god. Welcome to Extended Clip. It is episode 327. I am one of your hosts, Eddie Averill, and I'm perfectly content being a white, Jewish, half Latino boy.
I'm Malcolm Baum, and you could find my 23andMe in the Patreon. If you want to know my racial makeup, the exact numbers.
Yeah, I'm JT White, and I will remain racially ambiguous.
He is the titular white, though. You could put it together.
Damn it. Given away by my last name yet again.
I was going to say, it's like the last name opportunities there for JT. There was a lot of ways to go there, you know?
Yeah.
I do know some black whites, though.
I know some white blacks as well. My 5th grade teacher was Mr. Black, and we had a substitute literally named Mr. White, who was a black guy. And it was the craziest moment of my 5th grade life, having that substitute come in. Like, oh, this is who you're replacing him with?
That's straight comedy. That is hilarious.
Couldn't have wrote that any better.
We love the Barry White, Jack Black dichotomy, you know, the rule, or the rule. I don't know. There's some sort of lesson there.
We love Jack Black on this podcast.
Yeah.
We're talking about Madigan this week, a film by Don Siegel from 1968 that was eventually turned into a TV series that revitalized, brought back from the dead, no spoiler alerts, the main character, the titular Richard Windmark character, Madigan. And I could totally see why, because from the start, this like feels more like 70s TV than New Hollywood. And I was like, oh, they made a 70s TV show out of this a few years later. Perfect. JT, you brought Madigan to the pod. What was your thinking here?
I watched this for the first time like a month or two ago, and I don't know. I've been in kind of Siegel fever this year. After rewatching Madigan, I purchased from thrift books Siegel's autobiography, where he talks about like coming up, because I think he's like nephew of like one of the Warner brothers, as how he's able to get his start. But yeah, I don't know. Siegel's just such a cool dude, like very clearly in conversation with like great American directors like John Ford. And I love finding, I mean, it makes sense because like Eastwood's directorial style is very Fordian, and being a student of Siegel, one would assume, I don't know, kind of following that lineage. But Madigan in particular was a film that I thought was great upon first watch. It has this fun, like exactly what you're saying, Eddie, like a televisual, like procedural style to it, where you're like, in terms of plotting, like I think the way it's raised to cinematic level in terms of like some of the naughtier content, and the way Siegel will compose some sequences certainly elevate it. But I don't know, Siegel has that type of background. Like he can work with this material really well. And I love the world of Madigan. It's so sick, so cool. Madigan's awesome. You have like an all-timer like Fonda performance for me. I don't know. This film just feels like it feels very extended clip to me, and I was excited to I don't know, hear what the boys have to say about Madigan.
Malcolm, you're fresh off watching this one, right? What'd you think?
I'm a huge Don Siegel fan. Like he's like honestly one of my favorites, and I really do. I mean, John Ford's better, but like I think of him in that light. Like I think of him as one of the greats. And Madigan is something I'd seen before. And I in my head, I thought it was a TV movie, but doing some quick research right now, I think I just got confused because it became a TV show. But yeah, it's just a really good crime procedural through like the lens and like the bluntness of Don Siegel. And he kind of juggles these kind of thorny personalities, whether it be Dan Madigan. Thorny might not be the wrong word, but like kind of complex, somewhat, these guys have some conflict that they're dealing with in their lives. And you kind of have two ends of the shtick with Madigan, who's kind of like this old street detective who seems to have been on the beat for a while. And then Henry Fonda, his boss, which I love that there's no interaction between them in the movie, right? Like, do they
have one scene where they cross paths at the captain's ball, and he just completely humiliates Madigan in 20 seconds. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, just through his the contempt of his stare, something that Henry Fonda's character does really great in this movie, and just kind of the different how they're kind of compares and contrasts them as they go upon their daily work, basically. And kind of, I don't know, like there's just some interesting stuff in this movie, like some viewpoints with a cop movie that, I don't know, maybe you might not get like in this day and age. Like it really reminded me a lot of a movie that's current. So like I'm not saying that Madigan got its ideas from Dragged Across Concrete, but I couldn't but help but think of
the reverse could be true.
Yeah, the reverse could. I mean, I think the reverse has to be true, or at least movies like this at the very least.
I could see Zoller definitely being a student of Don Siegel.
I feel like I've seen something somewhere where he's big up Siegel. There's actually no way he doesn't like Don Siegel. 0%. Siegel.
Siegel.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this before. Malcolm, you've brought up Sam Fuller as like the OG action director. I think Don Siegel is his biggest contemporary in that vein. He's in the business, working in the montage department at Warner's while Fuller is first coming up, and maybe even a little before that. But yeah, we could even do a whole mini series of like Fuller versus Siegel, like early action.
Oh, that'd be
movies,
awesome.
And the other one I would throw in it would be William Whitney. Reading Tarantino's book, he like really sucks off William Whitney in a good way. Like hey, what other way is there to get sucked off, I guess? But,
I mean,
but William Whitney is like one of the other like OG action directors as well.
I mean, another connection here, rewatching Madigan, I was like, oh, hell yeah, Richard Windmark. Like, I love Richard Windmark. And then I looked up the movies I've seen him in. I'm like, oh, I've only seen him in this, and he's the lead on Pick Up on South Street as well.
Yeah. Hey, there's the connection
Fuller.
right there.
Yeah, exactly. But I just rewatched it for the podcast, but I think also just in general, I'd watched Madigan more recently than Pickup. So kind of, it's mostly just this movie where I'm kind of like, you know, how JT is, you know, posting about Madigan, you know, I'm kind of in that Madigan, fuck yeah, epic Madigan moments, epic Richard Windmark moments mindset.
We're bringing back Madigan. Madigan is becoming a thing.
I think it's time for the 2020s Madigan revival, like, and not like a new show. I mean the critical revival. People need to have Madigan on their minds.
I am ready to, like, I haven't done the work and the digging yet, but the Madigan only ran for one season and like eight episodes. It's out there. I'm ready.
And that's like my favorite era of crime TV, other than like the 90s, like those like early 70s kind of stuff. Like if Madigan is sandwiched in between a Columbo and a Rockford Files, it's like you can't go wrong there, you know. I mean, he's really good in this. Richard Windmark is like, you know, to be on the same level as Fonda in this is huge. Like, the fact that he's able to pull that off is crazy. The other movie I really love him in is Night and the City, the Jules Dassin noir. I don't know if you've seen that one, you guys, but that one is sick. Has one of my favorite fist fights in all of noir. But yeah, no, Richard Windmark fucking rules in this. The story, if the listener doesn't know, because, you know, Madigan is not a film that a lot of people have seen. I gotta say, it's like looking at Letterboxd, the real heads have watched it, whether they're Siegel heads, police procedural heads, Henry Fonda heads. You know, it's one that you just like automatically know Felipe Furtado is going to have a 4+ rating and a good review on. But like not that many of my Letterboxd friends have seen it, and so I'm guessing it's not all that popular within the listenership of the show. But I'm really urging you guys, the listeners, to watch Madigan. The story. Madigan and his partner, you know, they're out on the beat. They're detectives in New York City, and they go into Brooklyn because on a teletype they get word that there's a guy wanted for questioning, and he's hanging out at this apartment. They're like, all right, let's bring him in for questioning. In what should be just a routine checkup, and there's the biggest Drag Across Concrete fucking connection, is it has like the same opening 10 minutes of Dragged Across Concrete, but instead of a bunch of racial slurs being uttered and Vince Vaughn putting his hand or his foot on a guy's neck, the criminal gets away and steals their guns. And so the two main partners here have to go back with their tail between their legs. And then you get introduced to Henry Fonda as the police commissioner. His role is dual-purposed in this because he is also overseeing this manhunt for these guys this guy who stole our two lead detectives' guns. But he's also just been put onto some secret tapes that reveal that his lifetime buddy, who he came up with through the ranks, who is his chief inspector, and his father was also like Henry Fonda's father figure. It turns out he's dirty and has been doing some cover-up acts for his son. And Henry Fonda's not exactly a family man in this, but he's like, you know, I don't care if it's family business. This guy's got to go. And so he's like coming to the realization that he's going to have to, you know, ask for the badge and gun of his one friend on the department that he's had his whole life. And so it's structured over the course of 3 days, and the 72-hour manhunt with, you know, title cards for Friday, Saturday, Sunday break it up perfectly into episodic plotting, which is perfect for something that would get turned into a TV show. And it's just, yeah, it's the adventures of Madigan, and you get to compare him to his partner and Henry Fonda as the commish. And it's just like a rip-roaring police procedural with a lot of action, like more action than paperwork, of course. And you get like the kind of ABC comparison of Madigan, his partner, and the commissioner's personal lives as well, whether or not they are you know, faithful to their wives and how they treat their side pieces and their wives as well. And it's just like such a fun movie that just breezes by like nothing. It's 100 minutes long, and it's just over before you know it in that perfect televisual plotting style.
Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head right there. And it's like such a well-oiled machine, and like great at doing these like complicated character compare and contrasts that I love. Like, I think that like really makes the movie sing, is just like how you're drawing like the sort of figuring out where everyone like ethically stands, and just how dirty in like their personal lives and on the force they are. And like right from the very beginning, like when you get like Madigan's partner Rocky like does the call home to his wife, saying, and they have clearly like a better relationship, and like from that beat you get Madigan being like, oh, well, I guess I should call my like taking the cue from seeing that call happen. It's just like little stuff like that. There's such a clear, like, strong history that is established that comes out at various points. And in terms of like, just Malcolm, at the very beginning, you brought up that there are some perspectives in this that you wouldn't anticipate from a police procedural. It's kind of jumping a little bit later into the movie here, but I think one of my favorite like beats and moments that you get is you see the perspective of Madigan's wife, and Madigan's wife, who is like very sexually frustrated. Like, Madigan doesn't seem to be fucking either his mistress or his wife.
I'm glad you brought this up. I have a theory, but keep going.
But in the heat of that, like, Madigan, his wife is super excited to go to like the police commissioner's ball or whatever. She's jazzed about this. Is like, okay, well, things have come up with work, but we're still going to the ball, right? And Madigan, dutiful, he does that, but he sort of like dumps her off there, and very very reliably leaves him with potentially the sleaziest womanizer cop on the force, who is like ready to fuck Madigan's wife the moment he leaves
Tonight. Yeah,
and he dumps her off so savagely too, because he asks that cop, he's like, so are you here with a date? And he's like, no, I'm batching it. And he's like, oh, good, because you can have my wife.
It's so funny. I mean, I watching this movie again, I was like, is Madigan impotent? Is that kind of like a secret like through line through the movie? Because it's not like...
I mean, he gets his gun taken away right away. That's classic, like, crime cinema castration theory, is a gun getting taken away from a policeman.
And there's so many, I know it's like part of it is that he's so busy that there's no time for him to have, sex with his wife. But he gets revved up like, 3 or 4 times, and then he has to like withdraw, you know what I mean? And it's like... Yeah. It's at a certain point, it's like, I think this guy might, could have an extreme sexual anxiety, or something like that. Or
I mean, it's like
impotent. Yeah.
Even in like the like him getting there, it's like he makes a point to visit his mistress too, and not fuck her. Like, it's like his partner Rocky is like going to apparently like just the place where like if you're on the calls like a cop, you can just crash and have a bed. Like, there's just like where he's heading in there, and Madigan's like, no, just go. I'll find. I've got something else to do, and then just goes visits his mistress at like a cocktail lounge. You get that very like cool shot of him like looking at her through like the beads there.
That image of him at the cocktail lounge looking through the beaded curtain at the singer that he fucks is like, or that he doesn't fuck, that he that he cheats on his wife without fucking with is incredible. One of my favorite images of the film.
I mean, they might just be best friends at that point,
Yeah, no, essentially.
I don't know. She's kissing him on the neck and stuff, and he's just like drinking instead of kissing her back.
But just going over to a woman's house that you're having an affair with just to fall asleep is so funny. It's like, in some deranged way, it's like the most, like an alpha brain. Like, I'm not even cheating with you. I'm just going to fall asleep on your couch.
Can't waste the seed. Can't wait, you know what I mean?
No spillage of seed.
You gotta keep it alpha, keep it tight.
Oh man, yeah. So as we said, that opening raid on the character Barney, that's like the guy who they're chasing the whole time, is great, and like it demonstrates right away how this film is gonna be different from like its classic Hollywood counterparts. Like this is gonna be a lot seedier and with like harder hitting dialogue, and not that there's not hard nosed dialogue in classic film noirs, but it's gonna be a little dirtier. You know, like you get that woman running across the screen naked who may or may not be underage. And Barney even has that great like George V. Higgins-esque line where he's like, "Tell the WAP cop it's now or never," which is just such a fire line. I love that shit. And when Madigan's at home and his wife is like, I was talking to Helen and, she's a good woman. And he's like,
I don't mind Helen. She's a bitch, but what the hell?
There's a lot of great, like, nice little lines, like banger lines within the,
yes.
like, I think, like, just thinking, this is kind of a standard one, but the syntax of it kind of got me. It's the same scene we were talking about at the beginning when they're, what is it, Benny or whoever that guy is?
Barney, the criminal,
Barney.
yeah.
Barney, when they're busting down Barney's door, like, I think he asks, "Where's the warrant?" And then I think Madigan says, "We left it downstairs with the doormat." I don't know why that gives me
so
such pleasure.
good.
I love it.
Yeah, no, the dialogue in this is fantastic. Like, it's a couple years before George V. Higgins would write a novel, but it reminds me a lot of what I've read from him, like The Friends of Eddie Coyle, Digger's Game, and right now I'm reading his book, A City on a Hill. And the dialogue really reminds me of that. He's like my favorite dialogue writer in literature. And I think he may have even shied away from his books being called literature. They were pulp crime books, but the dialogue in this just sings so well. And I don't know, like when they get tipped off for the wrong guy and they go to this bar to find someone because Madigan's old friend told them, and it's the wrong guy. And Madigan just says to his partner, "You know why he called us? Loneliness."
I was watching that
good.
scene.
He just wanted a friend.
Yeah, exactly. No, I like that scene at the bar because it is just funny. Like, I think that's something that Madigan's partner remarks on multiple times. Just like, these seedy people for information, huh? They're pretty like, I don't know if we could trust them really. Like, and like, yeah, that guy just being like a 24/7 drinker at the bar at 11 a.m. And I love when Madigan leaves, he just gives him $1. He's like, "Take care." And like, I'm like, okay, I know it's 1968, so like, $1's worth a little bit more. Like, I looked it up and it's like worth $10. It's like, it's still objectively funny, even if it's a guy who's down on his luck, just to give someone like $10 to be like, "Take care of yourself, man." Like,
the amount it costs for one more drink at the bar. Like,
yeah,
literally.
exactly.
Yeah.
As it happens.
One of my other favorite visits that they pay is to the little person who is a bookie that knows Barney, who they're after, and Madigan just keeps calling him Midge the whole time.
They only refer to him as Midget, pretty much.
Yeah,
like, I think he's
it's
only
so
known as
good.
Midget. Like,
and
it's
that's the
amazing
character's
scene at
name
the-
is Midget Castigliani.
Yeah, Midget Castiglione, yeah. And they just call him Midge, though, with no T at the end, which I love. And they visit him at the Coney Island boardwalk out of season, so it's like they're the only people on the whole boardwalk. And it's just such a great location work. And the location work throughout this movie, throughout New York, is so sick. And apparently that's something that Siegel had to really fight for. He was fighting with the producer of this movie the whole time, which is kind of perfect for a Madigan type, like he does it his own way. And the producers made him go back to LA for the climax. That third act, that big set piece at the end, is actually in the most New York looking place they could find in LA. The rest of the movie is on location in New York.
You could kind of tell at the end there's like this weird, I don't know if it was green screen technology, but some sort of like rear projection, or I don't know. Like, there's some sort of weird thing. But I looked that up while I was browsing the wiki, and I saw that, and I was like, damn, that's tough. And then Siegel went to the like head of whatever studio, like went above the producer's head to go to the studio head. to get the LA location that he wanted. Like, I guess the other guy wanted to shoot somewhere else. So he really had
probably
to...
just on the back lot he wanted. Yeah. The producer wanted just to save money. Yeah, because the producer on this, I think Arthur Rosenberg was the producer on this, like, was just being a dickhead the whole time, like, for no reason. And Siegel had to really fight to make it his own movie. And that's a recurring theme throughout the early Siegel stuff. And then he gets more agency once he makes those hits with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, just thinking of the midget, I wouldn't call him that, but that's the character's name.
That's his name.
The midge in the movie. I feel like like a movie even like 2 years later, or maybe made by someone else who's not like just so no nonsense like Siegel, where like they would have kind of like reveled in the strangeness of there being like a midget character, but it's just played like very straight up, you know what I mean? I guess it's like a little, it's not a character you usually see in a crime story, but like I admire Siegel's just commitment to directness, where it's like, just plays it straight up. There's, it gets called midget, but that's pretty much it. No antics, no comedy gags with the,
exactly,
the
other than his funny looking bodyguard.
Yeah, exactly. The natural contrast, because it is like there's a natural humor in it that that's just within the concept itself. So Siegel, he doesn't juice it; he just lets it ride.
We briefly talked about Henry Fonda in this. His performance is incredible. This is the same year as Once Upon a Time in the West, where he plays like the ultimate Western villain, just like an absolute menace. And in this one, though, he is not the typical Henry Fonda. He's much more like, I don't know, he just has a sadness in his eyes and like a sense of duty that he almost doesn't want to fulfill, because he sees all these other people have family lives, like he sees his buddy weaving these tales about his father and his son, and he's like regretting having to get him in trouble over this. And the other procedural thing he has to deal with is this dude Dr. Taylor, whose son was like mistreated by the cops, and this is 1968, and this is a black doctor whose son is getting police brutalized, and it's just a lot of complications ensuing here. But for Fonda, I don't even think it's the race thing. It's the familial thing. Like, he doesn't really know how to approach this, because he's like, this is a guy who's proud of his son, and my cops were beating up on his son. But also, I'm not sure. Maybe they should have been. He just isn't sure, and it's so complicated and great. And he's as by the book as it gets. There's even a line that I read kind of metatextually early on where, someone says Madigan doesn't always go by the book, and Fonda says, I like the book. And it reminds me of Young Mr. Lincoln, where early on in that one, he has the book of the law. Like, it's a big book. The prop is hilarious. It just says the book of the law. And you see Henry Fonda reading that early on as he learns how to become a lawyer. And it's just like playing with our knowledge of Henry Fonda as Abe Lincoln and as the all-American guy, and this is also the same year his son is an Easy Rider, this is the perfect confluence of all the extra textual and metatextual stuff for the Fonda family tree.
The character is just so perfectly crafted there, where it comes up directly in the text of the movie, where the woman he's having an affair with does bring up like how he is so by the book on the job, but like in his personal life is like, oh well, that's different. Like that's like he's willing to let that slide. But there's just like this, I feel like the usual like Fonda character portrayal, like they are these types of men that are like just so dutifully bound to like rule and order, or like a personal code. And here it does just make him such a sad, like miserable kind of character. There is one piece of information that gets doled out as a backstory, where it's Madigan and Rocky in the car, like sort of talking about I don't know. It's a little bit that's like sort of illuminating the difference between the two of them. And they're talking about one year at either Thanksgiving or Christmas time, a local like butcher was giving out like free turkeys. And Fonda returns the turkey because he's like, I don't want anything. I'm not crooked. And it's just like the guy's not getting anything out of it, but it's just he's just doing a gesture, but he is so just slavishly devoted to not being on the take. He refuses and is just kind of a prick about it.
Yeah, no, I think JT, you bringing up his sense of duty, like in his earlier films, the biggest difference here is, that he appears to be a sad character because of his duty, where in his earlier films he is proud of his duty.
Totally. And like, with both characters here, like Fonda and Madigan two, Henry Fonda and Madigan both two are like, there's a very like commitment to their job that, almost feels, I guess in Madigan's case is like a bit fatalistic, right? Like they're neglecting their wives, Madigan's leaving the wife unsatisfied, all in the service of, doing good police work. And like, that's where they seem to like, I don't know, kind of want to prove themselves. And it's just, there's a large emptiness to it. I mean, with Madigan, he's on the prowl, right? So at least he has that. It doesn't feel very sad the entire time or whatever. But like, I feel like his conclusion, like, I don't know, kind of gives the character like the ultimate meaning, the respectability that, that character didn't quite have in the beginning amongst like his fellow police officers, fellow detectives. But with, Henry Fonda's character, there's just like a brooding sadness and like kind of like contempt too when he looks at other people and like in his eyes. And I feel like Siegel like makes a good note of like Fonda's facial acting, getting some good close-ups in there. And like, anytime we're like in Fonda's like kind of I don't know, there's something just uncomfortable about Fonda's like office and like the meetings he has in there. It's like anytime anyone's office is like too ornate, but it's like old looking, it's kind of scary. It's kind of a bad vibe. But just thinking of Henry Fonda and kind of like, this year's kind of like the sleeper, or not the sleeper, but this year, 1968, it's kind of when he riffs on his persona, right? Once upon a time in what is it, America, the West? The West. Once upon a time in the West is the obvious example, and this one's kind of the sleeper hit, but it's like just a random note. It's like, I think Tom Hanks should do that. He should, he should try to play someone. I didn't see A Man Called Otto, so maybe that was his kind of.
That's his hard edge turn.
That's his hard edge turn, or the Apple movies he does now. But like,
I don't know. I think it may have been 2012 when he was in Cloud Atlas as several different races.
Dark turn? Did he take a dark turn in that one?
He took something of a shaded turn. Yes. He was also in a documentary that year called Inventing David Geffen, and it's like a total like tribute to David Geffen, like where he's just one of the talking heads being like, David Geffen's awesome.
Yeah, every time I go to the Academy Theater, the David Geffen Theater, I have to tip my cap to old David Geffen. News of the World. He's wearing. That look seems to be like a Western, so that's kind of close. Yeah, not exactly what I'm talking about, but sorry for that detour. I feel like Hanks, maybe not the quality of Henry Fonda. Hanks has been done some good work, but like,
well, I feel like it would definitely add like a little bit more layers and like just enrich his career and persona if he did things outside of that. And I mean, even here, it's like Fonda is it's very consciously playing with that. I like how you talk about The Office as like suffocating, because it does for a movie that's also like outside quite a bit. Like it does feel like when you're in those stuffy rooms. And I wouldn't say that necessarily, like there's no demise for Fonda's character. He just sort of feels bad that he is like a part of the machine that leads to like Madigan getting killed.
Yeah.
But it paints a very interesting contrast there, especially when like looking at like the details that lead into Madigan getting killed in the final shootout. Like, just obviously we've established Fonda very by the book, whatever. But I didn't notice the first time I watched the movie, but I really caught this time around is like there is a beat before Madigan and the other cops charge into the building. Like, Madigan is about to he's like trying on wearing like a bulletproof vest.
Yes.
Like, but it takes too long to put on. And there's just like, fuck it. We're just going to go in. And just like that moment there is just like such the key element of the contrast between the commissioner and Madigan, and just like a wild like little beat, because it's not like they're not
shot in the chest 2 minutes later.
Exactly. It's not something they're like playing up. Like I missed it the first time. It's just like a brief little blip, but it's just the brashness of his character. It's wind up with a bullet in the chest.
Yeah, no, friend of the pod, Eric Marsh of The Gauntlet, did note in his review, fellas, is it gay to wear a bulletproof vest? I also love the character that comes up later, the pretty boy, kind of like quasi hippie, quasi pretty boy that they use as an informant. Who they just Madigan and his partner run the most obvious good cop bad cop of all time on him. But the thing is, in 1968, I don't think good cop bad cop was a trope yet, so it was like normal. And his partner just breaks the dude's hand, and then Madigan's like, "Look, you don't have to talk to him. You could just talk to me." You know?
Does he say like "call me
I love
Danny"
that.
or something?
Yeah, he's like,
that?
just call me Dan. Just call me Dan. It's fine. You know. And I love how after they get the info and walk away, Madigan's just like, that kid needs a haircut.
You know, I feel like it's something that came up in our Mad Men series a lot. You know, kind of compare and contrasting. You know, kind of like the older people of the late 60s compared to like the youth movement, and kind of like how different they are. And it's something that even shows up here, and it's not really like, you know what I mean, not really the milieu that this movie's playing in necessarily, but I do like Huey, and kind of like, I don't know, his acting style is just kind of funny. I feel like he talks differently than everyone else, and I guess that's the point, right? He's a you know, a beatnik bohemian or whatever he's supposed to be, but like
He's a pretty boy.
Yeah, exactly. It is like everyone's talking like a cop with their like pithy lines before they break down the door, and like Huey's just like, I don't know, he's just from a different planet.
Huey's one of the people that those bitty old ladies that Henry Fonda saw at a meeting early on were talking about, when the lady's like, our kids should be playing baseball, not fighting in the street and smoking pot.
Yeah, exactly. I got like Huey's hair length right now. I guess I'm kind of a Huey myself. You know, that's kind of how I see myself.
Yeah, I think we're all Hueys here. I think this is a fantastic movie. I'm going to go 4 bullets on it. I could see myself going higher eventually. I want to watch the TV spin-off too, where Madigan comes back from the dead to roam the streets of Manhattan once again. I can't fucking wait. And this is just like so fun. I just love it. It's, you know, one of my favorite Siegel movies I've seen so far. It's not Invasion of the Body Snatchers or, you know, Escape from Alcatraz level, but it's up there. It's great. What about you guys?
I'm going to go 4.5 bullets on this. Definitely the rewatch made it sink in for me, because it has so many of just like the pure genre conventions that I love in like a police procedural, especially like the way the narrative is just sort of chunked up and divided. But there are so many parts of it that just feel, I don't know, they're just like off or like a little bit strange, that really elevate it. And you can tell like how much, like just in the film itself, like how much Siegel was fighting to make it gritty and brutal. And it just, I don't know, it's just such a fun, exciting movie. Especially, I think the intro is like a very fun way to get into this material too, because it's like a very downbeat sort of like happening where they're like, oh, they're just checking up on like a criminal that they know that's like loosely connected. This is another, I feel like, classic thing of the tagline to a movie just being so strange in relation to the film itself. But I mean, also, like, we're talking about Madigan being impotent. On Letterboxd, it says, if Detective Madigan kept his eyes on the killer instead of the broad at the very beginning. And it's a throwaway line that his partner says, where it's just like, Madigan is like, he's looking at the girl, but that's clearly not the downfall there. But I don't know. There are a lot of things at play here. Madigan's great.
I'm going to go 4 bullets on Madigan. Yeah, I think there's just a lot going on here. Like, it is fun, but like it feels like very complex and kind of just, I don't know, it kind of condemns what's going on, but like in a very just straightforward way, but not, very unemotional in a sense. But there's a lot of stuff bubbling under the surface. Like, just thinking of Henry Fonda's character and kind of like the main conflicts he has, like, with like the, racial brutality, it's just like, he lets the guy get beat up. That's pretty much the end of that. Or doesn't, like, the guy who comes in, the doctor, like, he comes in being like, I need your support here. And then he just comes back like injured as fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like pretty brutal stuff. But also, like, I love the internal conflict with him and his buddy Charlie, him kind of figuring out that, Charlie's covering up like a whorehouse or some shit like that. And I feel like the movie takes the perspective, or not even, it doesn't like necessarily side with it, but I love in that scene where like Charlie, or Henry Fonda's character, confronts Charlie with the transcript of what's said on the phone. And like Charlie's kind of like, well, he kind of knows how Henry Fonda is, the Henry Fonda's character. And like, he kind of like mentions like, since we're like best friends, I thought maybe there'd be a little bit of sympathy here. And I feel like in that scene, the movie is kind of showing you, it's like Henry Fonda's character is like, has nothing, you know what I mean? And like this guy is really, one of the constants through his entire life. And it's like, it's kind of sad if this guy doesn't stick his neck out for his friend, even if he's doing like corrupt things. And then kind of like the way at the end where he tells Charlie, we're going to fight him, you know what I mean? Kind of just straightforward, no nonsense, no theatrics, it's like he kind of has to come to that decision just because, what else does he have? He doesn't have any kids, you know what I mean? The movie makes sure to show that multiple times, that his character is an old cat lady with no kids, but a wife and a mistress too. But yeah, it's I think there's a lot going on here in like a short amount of time, and it's just there's just a lot of grit and a lot of edge to this movie with a lot of the on location shooting. It feels kind of like ahead of its time, right? Like, I'm sure it's indebted to like noir stuff, but it does feel more like stuff like The French Connection and kind of like the cop movies we feel. It's
a great
in
between of the classic Hollywood noir and the new Hollywood cop movie. Yeah,
exactly. And I think Siegel is a great connector of those eras too, in general, kind of like classic Hollywood and 70s Hollywood.
I mean, this and Dirty Harry are like a perfect pair for the transition.
Exactly. And then he makes The Beguiled, and it's like, okay, this guy's from 3033. This guy's from the future. He's got so much foresight.
And 1863 as well.
That's the wildest opening to a movie ever. The Beguiled. That can't really be topped. But yeah, loved Madigan.
All right, we'll be right back on Extended Clip.
For kissing, you don't know how hearts burn for love that cannot live yet never dies. Until you faced each dawn with sleepless eyes, you don't know what love is.
Well, we just know that the young people of the city, if given the chance, would rather be playing baseball and football than fighting on the street and smoking pot.
Welcome back to Extended Clip. We are now continuing the Madigan discussion by placing it in the canon of 1968, which I have long thought might be the very best year in cinema history. My list of great movies goes like 30 or 40 deep. We are only going to be talking about the top of the heap. Before we get into the list, though, like I want to just list a couple that are like a little deeper on my list. Like number 17 for me, La Femme de Cent Têtes, or The Woman of 100 Heads, is a surrealist short film set to a poem by Max Ernst. And if you're into surrealism, it's a must-watch, and it is just like some of the craziest imagery you'll ever see. Just 20 minutes of straight surrealism fire. There's a little music corner. You got Head by the Monkees, co-written by Jack Nicholson, of all people. Probably like one of the best new Hollywood movies, and like if you want to, you know, show that the Monkees are more than a manufactured group made for TV, Head is where you go. Monterey Pop, 1968 concert film, which I will be going on another podcast to discuss soon. Little preview. And we've already talked about it once, but Godard's Sympathy for the Devil, his Rolling Stones movie. Definitely got to check that out for Music Corner. Malcolm?
Yeah, I got some sleeper hits, like just in this little list I made, like those outside of my top 10. You got another Don Siegel movie, Coogan's Bluff, with Clint Eastwood.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's a much more goofier movie. You know, I say Siegel's no nonsense, but of course he likes to laugh sometimes. And it's about like this... Clint Eastwood's like a sheriff from Arizona who has to go to New York, and a lot of the movies just kind of like culture clash, like some dude from, you know, the West being like, what the fuck is this New York shit, and all these hippies. Succubus by Jesus Franco barely just missed the list. Honestly, might be my favorite Franco, to be honest. I'd have to do an internal check to see if that's true, but
I haven't seen that one, but everyone says it's one of his best. I really got to check out old Jess Franco's Succubus.
I think it's because it's a little, I mean, it's a good balance, because I think there's a lot more narrative than some of the more porny
ones,
and there's like, but it still kind of has some of those unhinged qualities that you know and love from the, and another one I got is Blake Edwards' The Party. I think previously mentioned on this podcast, because Peter Sellers does a Indian face in it. But I mean, despite that, it's a pretty fun movie, and I've always kind of liked Blake Edwards. I feel like we should do one of his movies for the podcast. I don't think we've done that, but he's got a lot of sleeper hits, kind of a lot of, you know, you could almost say vulgar auteurism picks, you know, Skin Deep.
Hey.
That's a favorite of mine.
I've been looking at his movie 10 for a while. I've been wanting to check that one out. Apparently really good.
Yeah, isn't there like a famous review of 10 or some shit like that? Like Rosenbaum or something? I don't know.
Maybe.
I feel like there's a lot of buzz around 10. I haven't seen that, but I want to see it. But yeah, that's all I'll shout out from my...
Also, just because I don't know if it's on Malcolm's list, but if we don't list it, the genre movie fans in here will get really mad. The Great Silence by Sergio Corbucci.
It's on my...
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's on
we'll
there.
get to it.
But yeah,
and the other one, just
mention.
because I don't have any East Asian films in my top 10, incredible film Golden Swallow by Chang Che with Jimmy Wang Yu and the late great Chang Pei Pei, who just passed recently. One of my favorite martial arts movies. Any other year in cinema history, it makes the top 10 of the year. Unfortunately, this is 1968, and we are going to start with one, my number 10. We did a podcast on that's going to be a recurring theme here. Shame by Ingmar Bergman. Listen to our episode with Clay Tatum. It is one that has grown on me in the past couple months since we watched it. I think it might be my number 2 Bergman behind Persona. It's like really that fucking good. What's your number 10, Malcolm?
This is where the controversy begins. I haven't seen this movie in a while, and I've only seen it once, so that's my stipulation. But I'm gonna go 2001: Space Odyssey here. You know, very good movie, but I don't know. I just have a preference for
not like top of the heap for you.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. I mean, I'll catch it on a screening, and it'll probably change my life. But
luckily
right
it plays on 70 like 5 times a year in Los Angeles.
Exactly,
because we are the luckiest people in the world. I mean, Malcolm, I don't think I've ever really talked to you about Kubrick outside of our Eyes Wide Shut episode. Is he like one of your favorites? I mean, I know you're not going to have a hot take that he's bad, but like, is he one of your favorites or not really like up there with your guys?
That's kind of interesting to say. Like, I get like I've only watched like 5 Kubrick movies. I haven't really gone through the gauntlet. So
which ones haven't you seen? Like Full Metal Jacket or?
I haven't seen Dr. Strangelove. I've seen The Shining. It's just not marked on my letterbox, but I haven't seen it like
since you made a letterbox.
Yeah. I guess Clockwork Orange and Doctor Strangelove are the major ones, but I haven't seen Spartacus or The Killing or Paths of Glory. I've seen Lolita. It's cool. I like it.
That was the first one you checked out, naturally.
Yeah, exactly. As a fan of the book, as a literature fan.
As a literature fan, yes. The Nabokovian Malcolm.
But I guess, it is weird. It kind of, I don't know, just, I guess I feel like Eyes Wide Shut feels like more of like a personal classic to me than I guess I personally hold Kubrick and as like one of my guys.
Yeah.
One of my
I'm surprised
lovers.
you haven't seen Paths of Glory though. Like that and The Killing are both like, oh my god, amazing movies. Yeah. JT, we'll get to 2001 I think on both of our lists.
Yeah, of course.
On, right? Yeah.
I like the
go ahead.
Kubrick as one of your guys discussion because I would say I feel somewhat similarly to Malcolm. It's just hard where it's like I haven't even 2001, which is ranked like very highly for me. It's been so long since I've seen it. And I feel like Kubrick in general, like outside of Eyes Wide Shut, which I feel like I'm watching the most frequently, like the viewings of his films are like so spread out throughout my life. And I mean, obviously, the time I watched pretty much all of them right away was when I was a very young cinephile.
Sure.
So I feel like he's someone where he's so foundational. I feel like it's hard to place that within like a personal canon.
Yeah.
But that being said, my number 10 is Night of the Living Dead.
Nice.
Which, I don't know, just classic. Like, it's been a minute since I've seen it, but big fan.
Yeah, that one doesn't quite make my top 10, but obviously I have nothing bad to say about Night of the Living Dead other than the fact that, like, and that's not even saying something bad about it, just that the sequels are even better, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Dawn, definitely. Day of the Dead, maybe it's about equal, but I would say Dawn of the Dead, the shopping mall one, it's like, you know, horror, metaphorical horror doesn't get much more blunt than a zombie movie at a shopping mall, and Romero just fucking kills it, obviously. Malcolm, what's your number 9?
The Great Silence, previously mentioned by you, just you know, good call, because if I didn't have it on my list, you know, we want it to be mentioned. I watched this one like last year, and I just really enjoyed it. I just really liked the setting of like the snowy western and kind of, you know, it's kind of in the late kind of revisionist western grit that it has to it, but I feel like it does it well. And like the kind of the idea of like a mute gunslinger, I feel like it's just, sometimes you just have something like that in a movie and it just adds, you know, an originality to it that's just kind of simple. And I think The Great Silence takes advantage of that. And yeah, I think that's the only Corbucci I've seen. I need to dig in here because this guy's got a pretty big filmography here, and all the posters look pretty cool. They all look pretty colorful and action packed, and people are holding guns on them. So I need to get into this shit. I need to watch more.
Me too.
I don't watch a lot of spaghetti westerns, I guess, or like Italian westerns, which you got to call them nowadays.
Yeah, no, I remember one time making dinner while JT was watching Django when we lived together, and I was like, these 30 minutes are sick. But other than that, The Great Silence is the only Corbucci I've seen. I really need to get on that.
I also have not seen many Italian Westerns. That Django showing or just viewing was like, I don't know. I think I've constructed the perfect movie viewing day that I can clue you in on. It's you're going to also be making chili or some type of long, slow cooking meal throughout the day that you're going to want to start around like noon. But you do 3 movies in a day, 3, maybe 4 if you're being ambitious. But 3 movie recipe, you do like Westerns. If you're doing Westerns, you go old Hollywood. You do a new Hollywood Western, then throw in a spaghetti Western. If you're doing 4, maybe like sort of some type of contemporary Western flavor there. That's the perfect movie day.
I love that. Much like 5 Alarm Chili, like JT makes 4 movie chili, you know? And I do remember that you were making a chili and I didn't eat it and I made my own dinner because I was having stomach problems that day and I knew that chili would do me no favors. So I made something nice and light for myself. JT, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is The Swimmer, which we have a very recent episode on.
Yeah, The Swimmer is also on my list. We will talk about it soon, but go listen to our episode about The Swimmer. It is the episode that really made me come up with the idea for our Mad Men miniseries, and it's a shame that we didn't get to pair that with The Summer Man from season 4 of Mad Men, because that would be the perfect pairing. But The Swimmer, just one of the great American modernist films, and made me want to read John Cheever. And if a movie makes me want to read, that's a high compliment. My number 9 is by Nagisa Oshima. It is Death by Hanging. Talk about another auteur who I need to watch more of. Death by Hanging is still the only Oshima I've seen. Whoa. And he has so many that look so good. And Death by Hanging, just one of the sickest movies ever about crime and how it relates to national identity and personality. And it's just like super Godardian, Brechtian, removed and like, cutting back into itself in such interesting ways. And the performances are so high level and the camera work is just like on a tightrope the whole time. And they're like, it's so locked down to this one location for the most part, so that when it does cut to an exterior toward the end, it's just like a miracle, it's like going outside for the first time, which I always love when movies do that. Is this one on your guys' list?
Yeah, it is. It is. I won't reveal where.
No, you could. Yeah, you could talk about it now, though, if you want.
Yeah, true. No, I said like it just propped up the fact that I don't think we've done Oshima for an episode, and he's definitely a guy who fits the bill of the vibe we're trying to create here with the podcast. Living on the edge personas that we take for the podcast, but yeah, no, Death by Hanging is just super. Like, I just love the concept of of like escaping a death penalty through like a technicality of the law, and then all these like lawmen discussing what to do next. And it's been a while since I've seen it. I have it pretty high on my list, and I guess that's why we got like these logging websites, because I guess I can only remember certain things about the movie. I can't remember it all, but like. Just it executes its very like one location ish setup, right? It isn't most of the movie like in the jailhouse, and it just keeps that concept like alive through like 2 hours. You know what I mean? Not an easy accomplishment. So yeah, I really like Oshima, and this is one of my favorites by him.
JT, it's on your list too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's my, well, I mean, I guess we'll get to it, but it's doing that type of surreal, like, art house kind of, like, metaphorical point making that I feel like, fuck, I'm trying to think. Exterminating Angel, I feel like feels like a good comparison point where it's just like this type of like kind of unsolvable problem emerges there. But
that's a great comparison.
Absolutely.
My favorite Buñuel that I've seen too.
I mean, it had to have influenced Oshima, right? Like
Yeah.
there could like it's such a good comparison that it cannot be. It has to be a point of influence, is what I think.
That would be a good
definitely.
series, The Unsolvable Problems.
That's sick. I like that.
Yeah.
We'll tap into that. We're gonna flesh that out.
Malcolm, what's your number 8?
Number 8 is a movie I think I also have recently talked about on the podcast, and also has a big Henry Fonda role, and also has a big friend of the podcast, Tony Curtis, in it, and it's The Boston Strangler by Richard Fleischer. And I mean, it's a great procedural, you know what I mean? Like, it has all those elements down, but what really makes it unique is kind of its collage style imagery that it does throughout, the movie. I think I mentioned it last time.
Yeah.
I mentioned it, but instead of like, think of a split screen, instead it's more like 5 various parts of the screen where things are going on, and it kind of interplays with what the serial killer's doing and what the police is doing, or just, or sometimes it doesn't do that. And it's just used to really great effect, and like creates a very unique sense of tension that obviously is not found in most movies, because most movies don't do that. And also, much like Madigan, it just it has just a real grit to it, a real edge that, I think maybe even 3 years earlier you wouldn't see in a movie like this. So Boston Strangler, Richard Fleischer, real reliable guy I go to for a lot of movies. So love some Richard Fleischer.
One of the great journeymen / auteur ? Directors. Tony Curtis, shout out for the Hollywood Babylon TV series, which I believe Malcolm watched at my apartment once. Were you there that night?
Yeah.
That is one of the funniest things ever. JT, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is Madigan. So if you
Nice.
want to know, you can just replay the episode,
For those
take
who
it back
don't
from
know,
the top. Yeah.
Madigan, a film by Don Siegel. My number 8 is Planet of the Apes, which we just talked about a couple weeks ago. Number 7 for me is High School by Fred Wiseman. One of his earlier films, his best of his early period as far as I'm concerned. Just a fantastic portrait of education in America and all the classic Wisemanisms of just like the institutions that make up American culture, and his, quasi fly on the wall. To a naked eye, maybe it's fly on the wall, but then you look a little closer and you're like, whoa. His editing is very suggestive, and it's just a classic movie. Malcolm, what's your number 7?
We got another controversial one here, and I think this one definitely needs a rewatch, because I've become much more a fan of this director, for better or for worse. Rosemary's Baby at number 7. And like, just thinking about it in my mind, it's kind of maybe a cop-out, but it's like I could see myself just like loving this on rewatch, just because I've watched some of his other movies in the meantime, like The Tenant, Bitter Moon, Chinatown, of course, and just even Ghost Rider, Frantic, and I love all those.
I want to watch Ghost Rider so bad.
It scratches that itch, and it's also very it kind of like it scratches that like 2010 itch too. Like, it kind of has a early 2010s feel to it that I really enjoy there. But yeah, Rosemary...
I believe Nick Newman is presenting The Ghost Rider at the Roxy Cinema maybe like next week. I don't know if it's by the time this episode's aired or not, but New Yorkers, head out for that. We did do an episode on Rosemary's Baby featuring Spencer from TGOFV that you guys can check out, of course. JT, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Death by Hanging.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is Tia Rima, which is like probably, I don't know. It's hard to say. We've done so many dang episodes of this podcast, but it's a movie that we covered on the pod that I feel like I think about probably the most often. Like, Just thinking about Terrence Stamp coming in, just dicking down the whole family and changing their lives. It's, I guess it's, I don't know, something in the water with 68, where Oshima and like Pasolini I think is amazing at doing like this type of weird, surreal thing and like having it be like effective and coherent. But yeah, I don't know. Teorema is fantastic. And now that was one of our, I feel like, very, very early episodes, right?
First 25, first 30 maybe. It's funny that you said that Teorema is one of the ones you think about the most that we've covered, because the B-side of that double feature is one that I reference almost weekly, the Bratz movie from 2007.
Oh, yeah. I think about that one, too. That is like a legendary pairing.
My coworker hit me with the classic "Would you rather be blind or deaf" recently, and I was like, "Well, blind, would suck because you can't watch movies." And of course, the response is, "Well, you can never hear music again." And all I could think about was the deaf DJ from Bratz who puts his hand up to the speakers.
Yeah, you should have been like, that's actually a very offensive deaf stereotype, that they can't enjoy music because they have the vibrations. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but that's probably the best double feature ever.
That's why we stopped doing double features, is because Malcolm beat the game so early.
I don't even know why it pairs so well, and to be honest, I don't know why. I don't remember the like vague connection and how I paired it together, because we used to I feel like we used to have to give a reason why we paired it together, but I can't. The dedicated fans could email in and tell us what that is, but
listen to the episode and send us a recap of it.
But yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoy the Bratz movie as much as I do, because there's just something special about the Bratz movie. There's just something special in the air.
Malcolm, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is Memories of Underdevelopment by Tomas Gutierrez-Elia. We got some Cuban perspective going on here, and I'm going to just do some light plot reading, but after the Bay of Pigs incident, Sergio, main character, chooses to stay behind in Cuba while his wife and family goes to Miami, and kind of we got the threat of kind of foreign invasion, but Sergio, he's kind of, instead of being concerned about that, he's kind of using his newfound bachelorhood to kind of sleep with a bunch of women, and he kind of like finds this girl that he wants to basically vertigo, turn her into his ex-wife, an image of his ex-wife. And much like I think I said by Death by Hanging, I don't remember a lot of the details of this one.
That's okay.
I just remember enjoying it a lot, and just it just had a very unique feel to it. Just I don't know. It just felt very different from most movies, and I just really enjoyed it. And I never really went on to investigate this guy's filmography, because it's another, much like Corbucci, like I said earlier, like this guy's got a cool looking filmography that he seems to be very esteemed in Cuban cinema. So yeah, I think that one's on the whole, not that we do stream, we're not go watch it, what I mean, not that we always give you streaming information, but that is like, it's on the Criterion, what I mean. I think that one's okay. That one gave it a boost, what I mean. I don't know if everyone, it's looking at Letterboxd, 17,000 people logged it, so I don't know, people know about this movie. I didn't unearth any gems here, but I recommend it.
My number 6 was the aforementioned The Swimmer. My number 5 is Orson Welles' The Immortal Story, in which he tells the immortal story of being so horny but impotent and fat that you have to get a young sailor to fuck the girl that you want. And it is one of the craziest things Orson Welles ever did. Jean Moreau gives a fantastic performance in this. It was made for French television, and it's just like, to me, one of the definitive late period Orson Welles movies, as far as just like throwing together whatever resources you can, experimenting with the form, and just giving a bombastic, beautiful fat guy performance.
I haven't seen that. I kind of feel bad for not having seen that. That's a shame on me.
Malcolm, what is your number 5?
It's Shame, which we did an episode about. But
nice.
It's
awesome.
Besides Persona, I think it's my second favorite Bergman. It's one that I've continued to think about, and they made a remake this year called Civil War, so check it out.
JT, what about you? What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Joe Dante's The Movie Orgy.
I'm so jealous I haven't seen this.
Yeah, which was sick. Like a few months ago in Philly, they had like a screening, which was just awesome. Like the way it was like presented, in terms of there's like a pre-recorded like Joe Dante intro that I imagine screens anytime they show the movie now, where he talks about like the original sort of like the original cut that he was doing when he was, I think, like a film student when he had made it. It was just like going around touring it. It was like even longer than the cut that screens now. And a lot of durational film experiments, I feel like, have kind of even ones that I obviously really love, like, are a little stuffier, a little bit more serious, but the environment that Dante wants to foster in the movie Orgy was like, in this little intro, he's talking about like, look, if you want to go, like, if you got to leave during it, like, go, like, take a lap around the block, go grab a beer, like, come back. Like, the movie's still going to be going on. Like, that
Love
type
that.
of, like, hangout energy for something. And something that's, like, so cohesive about... I feel like you could make a derogatory, like, argument of, like, the first YouTube poop, in a way, with just, like, how the film... is edited together, but he brings together the plots of a lot of interesting B movies and weird, just sort of old television artifacts in a way that I don't think anyone really else could. And even though it's like salvaged material, just really reflects like Dante's perspective and sense of humor, and it's just a very fun movie.
Malcolm, what's your number 5?
It was Shame.
Oh, of course. Okay. My number 4 was on your list already, Rosemary's Baby by Roman Polanski. Once again, going to plug that episode we did with Spencer. It was a double feature with Black Christmas. Malcolm, what's your number 4?
We're going to start, a phrase we're going to start using a lot. We've already been using, as heard on a previous episode, The Swimmer is my number 4.
Love it. Love to hear it. JT, what's your number 4?
My number 4, not on a previous podcast. It's one that I haven't seen since college, so I'm not sure how well this ranking would hold up. But it's Mr. Freedom by William Klein, which he made in France and is sort of a like superhero parody, well, not like parody of superhero movies because not really much of a thing then, but like a superhero that is a parody of American culture, where he's this like big guy in like football gear. I think the opening scene, if memory serves, is like Mr. Freedom like breaking into a Black Panther meeting and just like completely fucking shit up and like having the police come in. And it's just like this very, very low budget, ludicrous, like over the top, like anti-American satire, and it's a lot of fun. Like just something that's just right up my alley.
Crazy cast in this: Delphine Seyrig, Serge Gainsbourg, Donald Pleasance, Sammy Frey, Yves Montand. Like so many classics from 70s and 60s cinema, and that's crazy. Moving on to number 3. Is one that now a new phrase to be repeated. I talked about on the Sleazoids podcast a while back. Targets by Peter Bogdanovich. One of the greatest transition films. We talked about this with Madigan. Transitioning between old Hollywood and new. This is just one of the all-timers. Probably the best thing that Roger Corman ever produced. and just a fantastic homage to both classic actors and directors, whether it's the Howard Hawks jerk sesh that they have that influenced Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where Leo and Brad are watching the FBI on TV, kind of the same setup of them watching The Criminal Code. And Boris Karloff, just a fucking monument to him, and also a mass shooter movie too. And lots of great San Fernando Valley location work. So go listen to my Sleazoids about that one. What's your number 3, Malcolm?
Yeah, Targets. I mean, you have to look at the mass shooting crisis in America and almost blame the movie Targets, because I don't really...
Peter Bogdanovich, you son of a bitch.
I don't know if that was really going on before that movie came out. But yeah, as previously mentioned on this episode and an old episode, Teorema, I think it's nice. It's one of like the best concepts of all time. Just like a drifting stranger happens his way into like a nuclear family with a maid and has sex with all of them. They're all left to ponder the experience. It's like it's that's so money, and like not to go swingers mode, but it's such a great concept, and I feel like it delivers on it in such a great way. It's very reflective, meditative, and just really well done. Like I really, really love this movie. It's a movie I think about a lot. And also, how people get mad when you say Hauzu nowadays. You can't say Hauzu anymore, but I can't, even for fun, I can't say Hauzu. I do that with this movie. I in public I do say house. I do capitulate to people's demands, but I go Teorema. With this Teorema, really.
Not theorem. Yeah, when I see people say theorem for that movie, I'm just like, what is theorem?
Yeah, for the longest time, I feel like I would see it like even on Letterboxd at one point. I think it was Teorema instead of theorem, but I don't know.
You can't say Hauzu anymore, so I guess you can't say Teorema anymore. It's
the Frenchies are going to be mad at the way I talked about that surrealist short film earlier. I'll run it again for you. Le Femme de Sans Tête.
I feel like France only gets that respect where like I'll see like everyone has the American translation of the title, but sometimes I'll just see a straight up French title in America. No
one's calling Godard's early film with Anna Karina My Life to Live. No, it's Vive sa vie. Vive sa vie. Come on.
Well, yeah,
My Life to Live. That makes it sound like a pop punk song.
I know, exactly. It's like a Good Charlotte song.
JT, what's your number 3?
Number 3, Rosemary's Baby.
Classic. What's your number 2?
My number 2, 2001.
Me too.
Wow.
I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, other than number 1. 2001 is just a tome of a movie, obviously. We talked about it a little bit during our Planet of the Apes episode as being the future of the genre, while Planet of the Apes was the past of the genre. And, I mean, if someone says it's Kubrick's best movie, I'm not going to deny that. Like, I might like Eyes Wide Shut better, but 2001 is just the complete package and one of the greatest sensory experiences ever. Malcolm, what's your number 2?
Death by Hanging. Really like that one.
JT, I think we have the same number 1, Once Upon a Time in the West, right?
Yes, indeed.
Which you can listen to my episode on Sleazoids about.
Haven't seen it, by the way. Haven't seen it.
Really?
Whoa. Yeah.
Holy shit, dude. Have you seen the other Leones, like the Clint Eastwood ones?
Only the first one.
So you haven't seen the Good, Bad, and the Ugly or Once Upon a Time in the West?
I haven't seen those.
Holy shit, dude. Those are like...
pretty glaring... I had to watch the Bratz movie
I'm excited
instead.
for you. I'm smiling. I'm not angry. I'm like, you have some true all-timers waiting for you. I'm so happy for you, Malcolm.
Yeah, I mean, that's, we've always talked about this, but, always leaving a little meat on the bone for later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never know when I'm going to be down on my luck, bindled over my arm. I'm not going to throw away these chicken bones that still have a couple bites of meat left on them, and that's how I view that movie.
That movie's just a little chicken bone, just a little 3-hour chicken bone. I mean, the main cast, is one of the greatest ever assembled. Claudia Cardinale, Henry Fonda, Jason Robards, and Charles Bronson. Like, Charles Bronson just being the guy named Harmonica is so fucking funny, and he just shows up with the harmonica, and it's like Charles Bronson's best performance outside of Death Wish 3. And then it also has the greatest conflation of Italian cinema of all time, where the story was written by Leone with Dario Argento and Bernardo Bertolucci. One of the craziest collabs of all time. Probably Ennio Morricone's best work too as a composer, if not up there with his best work. Like, it is just the ultimate end of the West Western. JT, any other thoughts on that one for the viewers who haven't seen it, or just to Malcolm?
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel pretty similarly. It's been a minute since I've seen it, because I think the last time I watched it was in high school when I saw it for the first time. And I had a history teacher who knew that I really loved movies. And this was his big recommendation to me. And again, pitched as the way Henry Fonda, your best friend, he's evil in this one. And it's just I don't know, that performance, obviously fantastic. And I mean, Leone only has a handful of movies, but certainly this is popular, but getting handed it was it feels like the secret B-side, the one that's, I don't know, I certainly the best of his work for me.
I still haven't seen Once Upon a Time in America, which I really want to see, but that is not a Western, so it doesn't count in my book. But Malcolm, what's your number one?
My number one is Night of the Living Dead.
Oh shit!
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Number one. Hell yeah! I love to hear that.
No, yeah, I really love this movie. It's just, I feel like, it's one of the ultimate social commentary horror movies, and one of the earlier examples of it. So you got to give it its props for that. But it also just has a great indie style to it, just given the nature of the film production. You know what I mean? It's a lower budget movie. And it just has a classic, not brink of discovery, but just I can't think of the phrase. Just, it has a real fresh feel. You know what I mean? There's a freshness and liveliness to that movie that just is kind of, unparalleled. You know what I mean? I like the other ones as well too, but there's just a certain type of energy in this movie that's kind of unmatched. And I kind of need to go through the Romero backlog, because of course I've seen the big three, but I've also remember seeing Martin, which was just basically a movie about a strange guy who wants to drink people's blood. I saw that at the now defunct Cinefamily back in the day, in my early days. But yeah, Night of the Living Dead, classic. It's kind of I love the movie itself, but it's almost like a statement choice. You know what I mean? I'm putting Night of the Living Dead 1. That's just how I feel.
Also, his movie The Crazies is very good, and Kevin Durant is a fan of The Crazies. I mean, remember that being a classic NBA film tweet, that Kevin Durant posted a review of The Crazies back in 2010.
I mean, I don't want to, let's keep the illusion alive, but wasn't there a Crazies remake in the mid 2000s? I'm pretty sure.
I'm gonna keep the illusion alive.
That's sick of what do you call it? Katie's grindhouse tape. You know what I mean?
Grinding the grindhouse tape. Yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week's extended clip. I hope you guys enjoyed this listicle episode in addition to the Madigan review. Join us on Patreon for $5 a month. Extended clip, the extended clip podcast at gmail.com is where you can write to us. Our mailbag is getting a little damp, I'll say. Next week, we'll answer some questions. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Some droplets.
Yeah, little droplets in the previously just maniacally dry mailbag, which I'm looking to get sopping again, So anyway.
No, I want the mailbag to be mop level consistency. I got to dip it in the bucket, and it's so wet I got to strain it out, get all the
Yeah.
good questions out.
Yeah, we gotta hang up all the emails like with like little clothespins against the window so they dry out so we can read them.
Yeah.
Get one of those big filters, big ass like colanders that you put over the whole sink and then throw the mailbag in there. Get it dry enough to pull out the letters,
Yeah.
So keep writing. Thank you for those who wrote so far. We'll get some good email segments going in the next episode or two. If you go on the Patreon, our last episode was on Lady from Shanghai by Orson Welles. And our next one, who knows? Goodbye, everybody.